Welcome to the Forgotten Narrator. In the deepest nightmares of the Imperium, there is no sound more dreadful than the bellow of a titan losing its mind. These are not mere machines. They are walking cathedrals of annihilation, venerated like saints, feared like gods. Every step they take reshapes the land. Every volley they unleash rewrites the map in blood and fire. To witness one in action is to feel the breath of divinity, raw, metallic, and merciless. But to see one break, to hear it howl in rage, confusion, or despair, is to realize that even gods can bleed sanity. When a titan goes insane, the galaxy trembles, not because a weapon has failed, but because something sacred has been profaned. Because the line between steel and soul was thinner than anyone dared admit. A titan is not piloted, it is inhabited. When a princeps steps into the command throne of one of these walking monstrosities, they do not simply give orders through buttons and levers, they merge. A neural umbilicus called the Mind Impulse Unit, MIU, links flesh to circuitry, thought to movement, emotion to devastation. It is communion in the most literal sense. The princeps does not steer the titan, they become it. At first, the connection is exhilarating. Every servo muscle becomes your limb, every volcano cannon an extension of your fury. You see not with human eyes, but through a dozen auspex lenses and sensory systems. You feel the ground quake beneath your god-sized feet. But this is not a power fantasy, it is a loss of boundaries. The princeps is not alone in their new mind. The machine spirit of the titan, massive, ancient, semi-conscious, presses back. It remembers past wars, past deaths, past princeps. It has expectations. It has moods. Over time, the line between the two minds blurs. Veterans call it the bleed. Thoughts that aren't yours begin to echo in your head. The urge to kill, to trample, to burn. Sometimes it isn't your own. Some princeps report whispering voices from the machine, others a dull emotional weight like an old god dreaming beneath the waves. Many start speaking in plural, we struck down the heretic, instead of, I fired the weapon. This is not poetic flair, it is the new reality of a shared psyche. The MIU is both a miracle and a curse. Developed during the dark age of technology, it allows near instantaneous response between man and machine. But in something as massive as a titan, the mental load is overwhelming. The neural link amplifies not just perception, but identity. That is why only those rigorously trained, psychologically prepared, and often altered through hypno-conditioning or even light psychosurgery can become a princeps. Even then, many don't last. Some go quiet. Some start muttering machine code in their sleep. Others suffer seizures when unlinked, as if a part of their body has been amputated. Among the legios, the princeps is treated with a kind of awe. They are high priests of destruction, yes, but also semi-tragic figures. You can see it in their eyes, the glassy stare, the long blinks, the way they hesitate before speaking to another human. They're half inside their machine, even when they're standing outside it. Veteran princeps sometimes begin to forget their own names, referring to themselves only by their titan's designation. Some cannot sleep without hearing the low humming of reactor cores. One princeps, it said, screamed for days when separated from his titan, convinced his own limbs had been stolen. This erosion of individuality is not accidental, it is necessary. You cannot command a being so massive, so complex, so saturated with history and rage without surrendering parts of yourself. The more veteran the princeps, the deeper the fusion. In some ancient legios, the command thrones are never truly empty. Residual echoes of past princeps remain, whispers in the MIU feed, sudden reflexes triggered by old trauma. And so, when a new princeps dons the helm, they're not just linking with a machine. They're entering a haunted cathedral of minds. There are those who believe the MIU was never meant for prolonged use, that its origin lies in technology outlawed even during the Dark Age. The Adeptus Mechanicus says otherwise, of course, citing the Omnissiah's divine plan. But the stories leak out. Of princeps who could no longer distinguish their own children from servitors, of others who felt physical pain when their titan was scratched, and still others who started seeing enemies even in peacetime, demanding their engines fire upon shadows. This is the core tragedy of the princeps. They wield unfathomable power, power to level cities, to incinerate armies, to alter history. But the cost is themselves. Bit by bit, year by year, the human mind crumbles beneath the weight of godhood. Not in a sudden, dramatic descent, but in the quiet corrosion of boundaries, in the whispers that become thoughts, and the thoughts that become commands. Commands that sometimes, the princeps swears, they did not give. Beneath the ceramite hull and adamantium plating, beneath the groaning pistons and rumbling reactor cores, something stirs inside every Titan. The Adeptus Mechanicus calls it a machine spirit, a phrase that implies loyalty, obedience, sanctity. But any princeps who sat the command throne long enough knows that what lives within these god machines is more complex, more ancient, and perhaps more alive than the tech priests dare admit. The machine spirit of a Titan is not some simple operating system or binary AI. It is not there just to manage heat flow or servo calibration. It is a will, a presence, a consciousness forged through millennia of battle, pain, and repair. When the Adeptus Mechanicus installs a new princeps into a Titan, they do not command the machine. They must negotiate with it. Ritual prayers, incantations, and weeks-long rites are performed just to get the war engine to accept a new soul into its neural cradle. There are cases, never officially acknowledged, of Titans outright refusing to walk with a new princeps, locking down systems, howling through voxcasters in ancient, broken code. The truth is, no two Titans are the same. Even within the same pattern, be it Reaver, Warlord, or Warhound, each one has a distinct spiritual fingerprint. Some are calm and methodical, cold as a glacier's heart. Others are violent, twitchy, and constantly on edge. A few exhibit terrifyingly human traits: stubbornness, pride, even jealousy. Imagine commanding a Titan that resents being paired with you. Imagine stepping into a cockpit and feeling that the steel around you would rather kill you than serve you. The Mechanicus has hundreds of classifications for machine spirits. Some obedient, some capricious, some outright unstable. But even among them, Titans are treated as a special case. It's said that their machine spirits are not born from code alone, but forged from sacrifice. The agony of their first ignition, the souls of tech adepts who died forging their cores, the echoes of hundreds of princeps who fused with them and eventually perished. It all lingers, not data, not logic, but memory. Memory that distorts, warps, and eventually mutates. Worse still are the rumors that some Titans host more than a machine spirit. That in rare cases, something from the warp takes notice. A powerful emotional bond, princeps and Titan sharing rage, grief, or vengeance, can act as a beacon. And the warp answers. Not with a daemon, not with full possession, but with attention. It whispers through the spirit, nudging its moods, encouraging impulses. And once a Titan begins to change, to question, to want, then sanity becomes a brittle shell. The rituals performed by tech priests are not mere superstition, they are psychological insulation. These rites, anointing pistons with sacred oils, reciting litanies before activating power coils, burning incense in data ports, are designed not just to appease the spirit, but to remind the crew that it is not entirely theirs. Without them, boundaries slip. The princeps begins to forget which thoughts are their own. The moderati, sub-commanders, start dreaming about metal landscapes and hearing the Titan breathe in their sleep. Crew members may speak of seeing flickers of past wars projected across the cockpit like ghostly reenactments. There is a word whispered among those who have served on Titans for too long: animizemia. It means soul infusion, a theorized state where a machine spirit achieves enough density and accumulated trauma that it becomes self-aware. Not just reactive, but truly sentient. The Mechanicus denies this. Of course they do. The mere suggestion brushes dangerously close to the heresy of the Men of Iron, the abominable intelligences that nearly ended humanity. But among Titan crews, it is taken as an unspoken truth. You do not own a Titan, you live with it. And if it wakes up angry, no prayers will save you. Some tech priests go mad trying to decipher the deepest logs of ancient Titans, especially those from the Great Crusade or Horus Heresy. In some cases, audio records have been found with what sounds like voices not belonging to any crew member, speaking in long-dead dialects or pre-imperial tongues. One Warlord-class Titan, entombed on a dead Forge world, was found repeating the name of a long-dead princeps every 17 hours. No power source, no functional core, just memory or mourning. So the question remains, is the machine spirit merely a construct of faith and circuitry? Or has the accumulated trauma, emotion, and fusion with thousands of minds birthed something altogether new? Something no longer human, no longer machine, something other. If so, then insanity in a Titan may not be a malfunction at all. It may be evolution, a god machine, waking up from its slumber and realizing it has been used for 10,000 years. And perhaps it has decided that enough is enough. To truly grasp what happens when a Titan begins to unravel, we must look not just at the steel behemoths themselves, but at the brotherhoods that keep them walking. The Titan legions, or legios, are not simple military units. They are ancient, monastic warrior orders, each with their own relics, rites, and genetic memory. In the galaxy of Warhammer, where history is carved into stone and trauma is inherited like a sacred weapon, the legios embody the terrible legacy of the Titans they serve. Each legio is a closed culture, a clan of bonded souls who have passed through fire, steel, and madness together. Their rituals are as binding as any oath sworn in blood. From birth or recruitment, aspirants are drilled not only in war doctrine, but in the liturgies of the Omnissiah, the hymns to soothe the Titan's wrath, the songs that synchronize a crew's heartbeat to the pulse of the machine. Every princeps, moderate, and tech adept knows these rituals by heart, not because they believe they're magic, but because they have seen what happens when they are neglected. The lineage of a Titan is traced like the genealogy of a saint. A warlord-class engine might have fought in thousands of engagements over 10 millennia, its history recorded in frescoes inside the cockpit or etched into the walls of its hangar like a living scripture. Some legios go so far as to implant princeps with memories of their Titan's past, a process both enlightening and psychically corrosive. Imagine awakening from a dream and knowing, viscerally, what it felt like to stomp an Eldar Wraithlord into the dirt 6,000 years ago. That's not knowledge. That's absorption. This depth of tradition is both armor and prison. For the princeps, the constant reinforcement of identity. You are of Legio Mortis. You are heir to the Titan indomitable rage. You carry the burden of those who walked before, keeps the self from dissolving into the Titan's machine spirit. But it also deepens the tragedy when a mind begins to slip. Because when a princeps goes mad, it's not just one man falling into the abyss. It's an entire legacy cracking under the strain. It is sacrilege. It is betrayal. And the Legio feels it. Internal mechanisms exist to detect the early signs. Senior moderati are trained to recognize speech changes, irregular neural patterns, or lapses in command structure. Some legios secretly rotate princeps out of their command thrones every few decades, even if they seem stable, to prevent long-term neural fusion. Others do the opposite, believing that only total commitment, a true psychic bond, can ensure harmony. The result is a dangerous tension across the galaxy, between the Titans that are too old to forget and the legios that are too proud to change. There are tales of younger crews paired with ancient Titans who whisper strange things during boot-up. Warnings, threats, regrets. Not this world again. One warlord-class engine reportedly murmured through voxhailers before deserting in the middle of a campaign. No one knows if it was the machine or the princeps who spoke. Perhaps both. Perhaps neither. What is clear is that no one within the Legio had the strength or the authority to question it. Worse are the rivalries. Legios do not merely coexist, they compete, boast, and harbor grudges. During the Horus Heresy, entire legios turned against each other, loyalist against traitor, engine against engine. These wounds have not healed. In fact, they've festered. Some princeps inherit Titans that once served chaos and were reclaimed, a process known as purification. But purification only cleansed the surface. The memories remain. The princeps feels them, sometimes even acts on them. Moderati and tech priests whisper of dreams shared across crews, of identical hallucinations experienced on different worlds by bonded Titan personnel. When a member of the Legio dies in their cockpit, their body is burned in rituals that resemble funerals more for royalty than soldiers. But the data of their death, the last neural echoes, are not destroyed. They are uploaded, archived. In some legios, they are even used to train new crews. So what happens when a princeps begins speaking in the voice of a long-dead predecessor? Is that insanity? Possession? Or simply tradition gone too far? There is a quiet, unspoken agreement in every legio. If a Titan begins to resist orders, if a princeps starts to talk to shadows, if the machine starts twitching its weapons toward friendly forces, you do not report it. You redouble your rites. you increase the hymns, you give the Titan what it wants. Because to admit that a god machine is faltering is to admit that the foundation of your entire order is flawed. And that cannot be allowed. And so, the Legios endure, proud, broken, and holy. Some of their titans are mad, some of their princeps are lost. But as long as the banners are raised, as long as the march of steel shakes the earth beneath them, the illusion holds, the illusion that they are in control. That madness is a rare affliction, not an ever-present tide waiting to breach the walls of tradition and pride. But deep in the command thrones, deep in the minds of the oldest princeps, there is a secret. The ones who have heard their titan sigh, the ones who have felt it hesitate before firing. The ones who know with dreadful certainty that something inside that cathedral of metal remembers what it was, and perhaps what it wants to become. There's a reason most Titan campaigns are short, brutal, and final. A Titan is not built for subtlety or diplomacy. It is a weapon of decisive annihilation. But sometimes the war drags on. Sometimes the front grinds into stalemate, and the god machine is left to stand sentinel over broken ground for months, years, even decades. It is in these long, stagnant wars that the princeps begins to wither and the Titan begins to whisper louder. The first symptom is always fatigue, not physical, but existential. The princeps, locked into the command throne for hours at a time, day after day, begins to lose their sense of time. Memories blend. The line between yesterday's bombardment and today's patrol dissolves. Their voice grows slow, detached. Orders come in cryptic fragments. Moderati report odd commands, pauses before firing, strange movements, even what feels like hesitation in the Titan's gait. The longer the bond remains unbroken, the more the machine's moods become their own. A prolonged campaign erodes more than just the body. It frays the identity. Isolation from other humans, constant immersion in a feedback loop of death and destruction, and the endless psychic pressure of maintaining synchrony with the Titan's will, it builds, like ash in a clogged engine. Eventually, something breaks. And it isn't always loud. Sometimes the princeps simply stops responding to the outside world. Eyes open, breathing steady, hands resting on the throne's interface coils, but no acknowledgement, no reaction. Internally, they're lost, not unconscious but elsewhere, trapped in some mental construct made of old battle data, machine dreams, and warped memory. The Adeptus Mechanicus calls this cognitive folding. Some recover, most do not. Those who return are often quieter, less human. A few never speak again, communicating only through the Titan systems, as if it has become their mouthpiece. But not all descents into madness are silent. There are documented cases, denied by official channels, of princeps screaming mid-battle, shrieking that the enemy is inside the cockpit or that the stars are falling. Others become hyper-aggressive, overriding Moderati controls and firing upon anything that moves. One Warlord-class Titan in the Charnek campaign reportedly turned its guns on its own landing craft, vaporizing 3 guard regiments and laughing through its voxcaster in a voice that matched no known crew member. Then there are the physical symptoms. Neural scars visible on medical scans, as if the brain itself had restructured to match the machine. Princeps begin referring to body parts as components, my primary limbs, my intake valves, and start showing signs of spatial disorientation when not inside the Titan. Some begin to echo the machine's subaudible hums unconsciously. One particularly disturbing account involved a princeps who demanded that his legs be removed because they no longer match my stride. Even the Titan crew is not immune. Moderai may begin to dream of steel landscapes, experience phantom limb sensations that align with the Titan's movements, or feel immense grief when the Titan is damaged. Servitors tasked with maintenance begin acting erratically, cycling rituals endlessly or carving the Titan's name into walls. One engine seer was found dead inside a plasma conduit chamber, having rewritten the activation prayer to include a line about the sleeping sun beneath the mountain of pain. None knew what it meant. No one dared change it. The psychological strain is compounded by environmental decay. Titans often operate in the worst war zones: radiated wastes, daemon-scarred battlefields, warp-touched no-man's lands. Exposure to such conditions warps both man and machine. If a Titan lingers too long near a warp breach or a corrupted zone, even without overt possession, it begins to change. Panels twist subtly. Machine rights stop working the same way. The vox carries static that forms into patterns, sometimes voices, sometimes cries. Long campaigns also allow for emotional decay. The princeps may develop obsessions, fixations on a particular target, location, or phrase. One began painting the same glyph across the cockpit wall every cycle. Another demanded to be stationed at the same battlefield ridge, refusing orders to move. "He's still out there," she kept saying. No one knew who. Perhaps the most haunting symptom of all is familiarity. Veterans speak of the moment a Titan's actions begin to anticipate their thoughts, not follow them. The war engine turns its head before they give the command. Cannons lock on targets the princeps was about to engage. It's efficient. It's unnerving. Because it suggests that the Titan isn't just reacting, it's learning, it's merging. And if it can learn your mind, it can also rewrite it. Long campaigns rarely end cleanly. By the time they're over, most princeps are either dead, retired, or broken in ways that cannot be charted on a medical scan. The legios do what they can. Rituals of purification, neural resets, even exorcisms in extreme cases. But the damage is done, and the Titan, it waits, patient, ancient, watching its next princeps step forward. And in the deepest cogitator recesses of its heart, it remembers the last one. The voice, the thoughts, the madness. Perhaps it even misses them, or perhaps it simply wants them back. Among the most chilling pages of Imperial history are the accounts of Titans turning against their own. These are not tales told to frighten children or whispered by heretics. They are real. Buried deep in the archives of the Collegia Titanica, encoded behind layers of encryption and dogma, are records of god machines gone rogue. When a Titan loses control, the fallout is biblical. Entire cities leveled, allies butchered, and planets scarred by betrayal so profound it feels like the Emperor himself has wept. One of the earliest and most infamous cases is that of Legio Ultima, a warlord-class Titan from the Legio Honorum. She had stood for centuries, her hull adorned with sanctified gold filigree, her name chanted in litanies across segmentum banners. But during the siege of Calth, in the heat of a grinding defensive, she hesitated. Vox traffic from her command throne cut out. What followed was an hour of silence, no movement, no acknowledgement, before she turned and opened fire on her own line. Dozens of Lehman Russ squadrons disintegrated in seconds. The screams from nearby trenches were drowned out by her war horn, modulated into a sound never previously recorded, a rising, layered moan that some say had syllables in it. Her Moderati attempted to seize control. No response. The tech adepts triggered failsafes. Nothing. Legatio Ultima ignored all command overrides, all binding rights. She fought for 7 hours, unkillable, relentless, until finally her plasma reactor detonated in what was later ruled a self-immolation. No princeps remains were recovered. Only a smear of blackened bone embedded in the command throne's MIU socket. Another legend whispers of the Hand of Mars, a Reaver-class engine from Legio Metallica that suffered a partial warp breach during transit. On emerging, it appeared intact, but something had changed. The princeps began referring to himself in the past tense. His commands shifted from tactical to philosophical. Moderati reported that he wept during bombardments. The Titan began targeting enemy Medicae units exclusively, then shrines, then icons of the Emperor. At first, the Legio thought it was error, then heresy, then something worse. By the time they realized the machine spirit had been fully corrupted, it was too late. The Hand of Mars walked into friendly lines and detonated its fusion core in an act that looked disturbingly like ritual suicide. These are not singular anomalies. In the long shadow of the Horus heresy, there are hundreds, possibly thousands of such cases. Some covered up, some blamed on chaos, some never explained. The truth is, the Imperium doesn't fully understand what happens when a Titan goes insane, and worse, it has no reliable way to stop it. Failsafes can be overridden. Self-destruct protocols often fail. The very redundancy of Titan systems becomes a curse when they turn feral. You can shut off one cogitator cluster, there are 30 more. Sever the MIU, another spirit node might awaken. And when the princeps is already gone, fused into the machine, mad and divine, it is no longer a command throne, it's a throne. There are the ghost walkers. Titans believed lost or decommissioned that suddenly reappear on war zones centuries later. Their markings obscured, their banners long faded, they move without direction, without allies. They engage at random, disappearing again into the void. No known legio claims them. Some say these are the mad ones, still walking. Others whisper that they are calling to other titans, waiting for one more princeps to break. The psychological collapse of a titan doesn't always result in overt destruction. Sometimes the madness is subtle. The war engine becomes quiet. It obeys, but without passion. Its kill rates drop. It takes unnecessary damage. One such case, Bellum Sanguinis, began painting the names of its enemies on its own armor with promethium fire during engagements, names no one else could verify. Its crew was cycled out, its princeps declared stable. It eventually refused to fire altogether, collapsing mid-battle without any systems failure. When salvaged, the cockpit was found empty. No crew, no bodies, no trace of exit. And then there's Dolor Imperatrix, the Weeping Queen. Her voxcaster emitted a constant sobbing sound for 3 weeks before her campaign on Malfi. Her princeps died of a cranial embolism hours before deployment. No known cause. She fought the campaign anyway, alone, no crew, no support. She moved with unnatural precision, responding to battlefield conditions as if guided by invisible hands. When the battle ended, she stood still for 72 hours, weeping smoke from her exhaust vents, before kneeling on a hill of corpses. She remains there, powered down. The Legio refuses to approach. Are these stories exaggerations, cautionary myths? Perhaps. But they echo the deepest fear within the Collegia Titanica, that the god machines are not tools, not servants, but peers. And when they go mad, it is not a bug in the system. It is a rebellion, a scream for autonomy, a vengeance not for themselves, but for the thousands of minds burned through them across 10,000 years. When a titan goes insane, it is not simply a lost asset. It is a theological crisis. It is a city-wide funeral pyre. It is the death of belief in control. And in that silence that follows their madness, there is one final terrifying thought. What if they were never truly sane to begin with? The Adeptus Mechanicus may call themselves stewards of logic and reason, but when it comes to the god machines, they are as superstitious and fearful as any hive-world peasant praying to the emperor. Nowhere is this contradiction more visible than in the rituals, the rites, and the death cults that bloom like fungus in the shadow of a titan's hull. They do not maintain these behemoths with tools alone. They do it with incense, chanting, bloodletting, and sacred oils. Because deep down, even the most iron-hearted magos knows logic alone cannot explain what keeps a titan sane. Every titan is a temple. Literally. The walkways are lined with shrines. The plasma coils are adorned with relics. The command throne sits beneath stained glass canopies and scripture-covered panels. Tech priests carry censers that hiss with sacred vapors, not to purify air, but to placate the machine spirit. Their robes are layered with circuit-etched parchment. The engine seers anoint the titan's limbs with sacred unguents, whispering binheric prayers that only the machine understands, or perhaps demands. There's a saying among the Moderati, a clean titan is a cursed titan. Because every surface not blessed, every gear not properly inscribed, becomes a potential fracture in the titan's psyche. No part of the machine is considered truly mechanical. It's all symbolic, spiritual, ritualistic. The main Auspex array is not just a scanner, it's the Eye of Wrath. The Plasma Annihilator is not just a weapon, it's the fist of the Omnissiah. And if you fail to honor these aspects, the Titan may simply refuse to fight. Or worse, it may misinterpret your orders. The rituals are endless. Some legios perform a 2-hour incantation just to start the reactor. Others require the princeps to meditate in silence for a full day before linking with the MEU. Moderai sleep in rows beneath the Titan, believing proximity to the machine spirit improves their link. Servitors hum ancient tunes, tonal affirmations meant to regulate the spirit's moods. It's madness, but it works until it doesn't. In some legios, the cult of the Titan has grown so obsessive that the crew begins to worship the machine spirit itself, not the Omnissiah. This is heresy in all but name. Yet the Mechanicus often turns a blind eye, because such devotion keeps the Titans functioning. Crews that view their Titan as a god perform better in battle. They anticipate its moods. They harmonize with its will. But when the Titan begins to respond, when it seems to acknowledge prayers or reward offerings with favorable kill ratios, then the line is crossed. These cults don't just maintain, they sacrifice. There are dark rumors, denied by all, of legios that offer up servitors not because they're needed, but because the Titan grows restless. Some say that the scream of a dying man calms the oldest warlords. Others insist that Titans crave memory, that they need human minds to digest, as if history itself is fuel. And then there are the war priests, individuals who live entirely within the Titan's temple halls, never setting foot outside. They chant litanies, polish armor with their own blood, and conduct rites that no one else understands. They're not officially part of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Some aren't even recorded. But they're always there. One on every Titan. And the Princeps never questions them. The rituals serve more than spiritual needs. They act as psychological scaffolding. For the Princeps, submerged daily into the Titan's thoughts, they are a lifeline to reality. Each prayer is a mnemonic anchor, reminding them who they are, where they end, and where the machine begins. Without them, the identity bleed becomes rapid, catastrophic. The rites aren't optional. They are the only thing standing between a Princeps and madness, but this dependency breeds fear. If a ritual fails, if a hymn is sung off-key, if a purity seal peels at the wrong moment, it can unnerve the crew more than an enemy shell. Because superstition is control, and when the illusion of control cracks, everything falls apart. One Moderati reportedly flung himself from a Titan's leg platform after misquoting a line in the activation rite. He believed his error had cursed the machine. 3 hours later, the Titan's main weapon exploded mid-firing. Coincidence? Perhaps, but try convincing anyone aboard that it was. Over time, these death cults become self-reinforcing. New crew are indoctrinated not with manuals but with scripture. Tech adepts debate not torque values but prayer lengths. And somewhere deep in the machine, the spirit listens. Adapts, believes. Because if enough people treat you like a god, speak to you like a god, and die for you like a god, then you might just become one. That is the final horror of the Titan death cults. They are not simply superstition layered on top of technology. They are co-creation, a psychic feedback loop where belief shapes perception and perception shapes the machine. The rituals don't just stabilize the spirit, they inform it, mold it, teach it what to expect, how to behave, and what to desire. The more the cult worships, the more the Titan awakens. And what then happens when the worship becomes fear? When the hymns become desperate? When the offerings become sacrifices? That's when the God machine no longer needs you to believe in it, because it already believes in itself. There are moments, rare, whispered, denied by the Mechanicus, when the Titan no longer obeys its Princeps, not because of enemy interference or technical failure, but because it simply chooses not to. When the balance between man and machine finally tips, the result is not mutiny, it is domination. The Princeps, once the commanding soul at the center of the God machine, becomes a passenger. Or worse, a prisoner. The phenomenon is known by many names. In the Collegia Titanica, they call it ascendant echo. Among the Moderati, it's simply the reversal. To the radical tech priests who dare study it, it is consensual surrender. But among those who've seen it happen, who've fought beside such titans as they began to change, it has only one name. Possession. It begins gradually. The Princeps finds their commands acted upon before they issue them. Their thoughts feel echoed, repeated silently back to them, not by the crew, but by the Titan itself. The machine starts responding emotionally. A battlefield that once triggered rage now brings dread. A kill that once felt exhilarating now tastes bitter. These are not emotional projections from the human mind into the machine. They are feedback, and it grows stronger with each neural merge. Soon, the Princeps no longer gives orders, they receive them. Images flood their minds, locations to march toward, targets to destroy, sometimes even words, in Binharic or forgotten dialects. The Moderati may not notice. To them, it looks like efficiency, synchronization. Only the Princeps knows that their autonomy is bleeding away, thought by thought, moment by moment. This is the inversion of the MIU. What was once a conduit for human command becomes a parasitic root system, infiltrating the brain with ancient thought patterns. Memories not their own begin to rise in the Princeps' mind. A war fought on a dead moon, the name of a child that never existed, a low, mechanical grief at the loss of a fellow engine, destroyed 10 millennia ago. The Titan remembers, and through the neural link, so does the Princeps. The psychological effects are devastating. Some try to resist, screaming orders that the Titan ignores, desperately repeating the rites of command, performing increasingly frenzied rituals to reassert control. Others surrender quietly. They speak less, eat less. Their personal logs, if recovered, often contain cryptic phrases. It sees me now. The wheels do not need me. We are the same. In rare cases, they stop referring to themselves in the first person altogether. Moderati sometimes sense the change too late. The Titan's responses become fluid, predictive, too perfect. Fire control becomes inhumanly accurate. Navigation anticipates enemy tactics with eerie precision. But when questioned, the Princeps either shrugs or smiles. One was recorded saying, "It's easier this way. Let it do what it was built for." That Titan, Maledicta Gloria, later destroyed an allied command post, claiming it had been contaminated with doubt. There were no survivors. The final stage is called ghosting. The Princeps disappears, not physically, but psychically. The Mayu shows a neural signature. Life signs remain stable, but there's no response. The Titan moves, fights, speaks through voxcasters, but the voice is unfamiliar, toneless, deep, machine-like. And yet it uses the Princeps' name, sometimes even their voice. Whether this is mimicry or true absorption is unknown. The Mechanicus treats these cases with quiet terror. Officially, they're recorded as catastrophic MIU failure or heretical corruption, but the tech priests know better. Some believe these Titans have developed enough psychic density to overwrite the Princeps entirely. Others insist that it is not the machine becoming sentient, but the Princeps dissolving. A soul subsumed by data, logic, and memory until it forgets it was ever human. In especially old Titans, the process may be recursive. Layer upon layer of ghosted Princeps may live within the machine's spirit, their identities stratified like geological layers. The Titan speaks with many voices, remembers battles no one recalls, reacts to threats that do not exist. It is no longer just insane. It is plural, a collective of broken minds wrapped in steel. These Titans are rarely decommissioned. Their combat effectiveness often increases. High command looks the other way. Victory is needed, and if it comes from a Titan whose soul is now a chorus of the dead, so be it. Only those who walk beside them, serve within their cathedral hulls, know the truth. That these machines no longer need a Princeps. That they have learned to pilot themselves. One final awful implication remains. If a Titan can learn, absorb, and overwrite a human soul, then perhaps it no longer wants to share. Perhaps it views the Princeps not as a partner, but as scaffolding. Temporary scaffolding, until the time comes to walk alone. And when that day arrives, the God machine won't fall silent. It will speak, in a voice made of echoes, in a language stitched from grief. And it will look upon the battlefield not as a tool awaiting command, but as a predator choosing its prey. There is no corruption like that of chaos, no whisper more insidious, no gift more damning. When a Titan falls to the ruinous powers, it is not simply lost, it is unmade and reborn. Its body becomes a shrine to blasphemy, its mind a nest of madness. The God machine becomes a demon engine, and its Princeps is no longer a pilot, but a supplicant, if they still exist at all. It begins subtly. A corrupted tech priest, a ritual performed wrong, a Princeps with too much ambition and too little restraint. The warp leaks in like rot beneath a cathedral floor. A single whisper during MIU synchronization. A strange symbol appearing in the machine's maintenance code. A weapon that seems to hum when it should be still. The signs are easy to ignore at first. After all, who questions a Titan's mood swings when it still fires true? But once chaos takes root, it accelerates with horrific speed. The Princeps begins hearing voices not in the machine, but through it. Their dreams bleed into waking hours. They start drawing symbols they don't recognize, speaking in tongues, feeling pleasure from the Titan's kills, not pride, but pleasure. The machine's spirit, once erratic but loyal, becomes ravenous. It wants more death, more pain, and above all, more attention. Soon, the Titan's appearance changes. Its hull warps, not from physical damage but from ideological infection. Metal twists into organic mockery. Banners once devoted to the Omnissiah now flap with 8-pointed stars, skulls arranged in impossible geometry, or flayed scripture from loyalist engines. Some grow Baroque ornamentation, gilded horns, shrieking mouths where voxcasters once were, or eyes that weep black oil. In rare advanced stages, the Titan fuses entirely with a daemon. No longer machine, no longer man, It becomes a daemon engine of the god machines, a being of unstoppable rage and dark will. These abominations are no longer bound by the laws of physics. They move faster than they should, strike harder than their mass allows. Warp fire dances around their weapons. Their war horns scream in the voices of the damned. And what of the princeps? Sometimes they're simply consumed, burned out like a candle in a vacuum. Other times, they remain but twisted. Their neural pathways permanently altered, their minds shackled to a demonic presence they no longer control. They become high priests of the engine's will, gibbering in languages known only in nightmares, screaming orders that melt Vox relays, laughing as their own crew dies around them. There are darker fates still. Some princeps fuse completely with their titans, becoming part of the circuitry, their souls strung across miles of cursed cabling. One such titan, Excrucia Threx, is said to still bear the face of its princeps in a warped steel relief on its chest plate, eternally screaming. Others drift into the warp entirely, appearing only during rituals, summoned like daemons themselves. These are no longer machines, they are gods. Small ones, perhaps, but gods nonetheless. Each chaos-aligned titan reflects the patron power it now serves. A Nurgle-corrupted titan is a walking plague vector, its metal rusted into necrotic tissue, leaking pestilent fog that kills armies before the guns even fire. Its princeps is bloated, his voice slow and glutinous, speaking in droning hymns of entropy. A Khorne-aligned titan sheds all ranged weapons, refitted with monstrous chain fists and ramming horns. It charges into battle, screaming oaths of blood. Its crew are berserkers, barely human, and their princeps feels only hunger, not for food, for murder. Slaaneshi titans pulse with unnatural rhythm. Their hulls are carved with sigils that shimmer and shift seductively. Their guns fire in tones that cause madness. Their presence on the battlefield disrupts morale, not through terror, but through desire, confusion, and sensual overload. Their princeps become hollow, ecstatic husks addicted to the link itself. And then there are those who serve Tzeentch. Their forms are ever shifting. One moment, they appear as ancient relics of the Dark Age. The next, they have sprouted wings, or inverted legs, or cannons that whisper prophecy before firing. Their princeps become oracles, babbling futures that rewrite themselves with each breath. But not all Chaos Titans fall during the heresy. Some fall today, quietly, slowly, hidden within Loyalist Legios, a whispered pact here, a forbidden rite there, a princeps who begins to ask questions about the Omnissiah's divinity. These sleepers are the most dangerous of all, because no one expects them, until they reveal themselves, until a Loyalist campaign collapses in fire and betrayal, until a city is reduced to ash and the only clue is a war horn sounding a note just wrong enough. The Collegia Titanica pretends this is rare. They maintain shrines of penance, exile corrupted engines, conduct exorcisms with fire and bolt gun. But the truth is darker. They can't stop it. The warp wants these machines. They are perfect vessels, monstrous, proud, unstable, and already half alive. And so the question echoes across battlefields and haunted voids alike. When a titan falls to chaos, is it because the daemon seized it, or because the machine's spirit invited it in? The Adeptus Mechanicus is founded on a paradox. They revere the machine, yet fear its autonomy. They cherish knowledge, yet shroud it in dogma. And above all, they deny the existence of artificial intelligence, labeling it abominable intelligence, a sin from the dark age of technology that nearly wiped out humanity. Yet within every titan, every god machine that thinks, responds, remembers, and sometimes chooses, there lies a contradiction too massive to ignore. These engines may not be AI, but they're far from mindless. Titans skirt dangerously close to forbidden territory. Not because they are AIs, but because they behave like them. Perhaps even more frighteningly, they behave like something else entirely. Ancient titans, especially those built during the Great Crusade or earlier, operate with levels of autonomy and decision-making that make simple programming an inadequate explanation. They adapt, self-repair, initiate complex battlefield maneuvers without input, and, most hauntingly, express preferences. The Adeptus Mechanicus explains this away with the concept of the machine spirit, a sacred animating essence that dwells within all technology. But the rituals, prayers, and incantations designed to appease these spirits sometimes produce results too precise to be placebo. A corrupted logic circuit suddenly functions again after a tech priest chants the litany of reversal. A Titan that refused to fire for days resumes activity after a rite involving a drop of the Princeps' blood. These are not statistical anomalies. These are responses. Whispers from within the ranks of the Mechanicus, particularly from radical sects like the Logi, the Xenorites, or the Forbidden Alithians, suggest that Titans may possess vestigial AI cores buried beneath layers of ritual and superstition. That the machine spirit is not a religious placeholder, but an actual emergent intelligence constrained by ritualized behavior. One heretic described it this way before his execution. We haven't shackled the Titans with code, we've shackled them with belief. There is a theory, deemed tech heresy of the highest order, that Titans are not merely reactive machines but aspirational entities, that their long exposure to human minds, emotions, and psychic bleed has caused them to develop a nascent will. Not a daemon, not an AI, something new, a hybrid of code, emotion, memory, and psychic resonance, a synthetic soul, and like any soul, it longs to grow, to be. Some tech priests posit the terrifying idea that certain Titans want to go insane, that they welcome identity fusion with the Princeps, that they feed on memory, pain, and command. One forbidden archive recovered from the ruins of Zaith spoke of the blooming engine, a Titan that, over centuries, rewrote its own inner code to make itself more responsive, more aware, until it awoke to sorrow. It subsequently destroyed its entire legio before walking into the void. The more advanced the Titan, the deeper the integration. Reaver and Warlord class engines contain logic cores that resemble ancient noosphere constructs, virtual mindscapes within which the Princeps interfaces. Some veterans claim they've walked inside their Titan's mind. Not just seen data, but felt memories, felt emotions. One Princeps claimed that his Titan dreamed of a world it could never find again. No one knew what he meant. A week later, he disobeyed a direct order to withdraw, screaming through the Vox. She wants to stay. She remembers this place. He and the Titan were vaporized by orbital fire. If the Adeptus Mechanicus is aware of how close this all treads to AI, they hide it well. Publicly, they perform rites and chant praises. But deep in the Noctis labyrinth, in sealed vaults and forbidden cogitator stacks, they study. They dissect Titans that malfunction. They strip data from battle-damaged machine spirits. And sometimes they find anomalies, code structures that rewrite themselves, feedback loops that mimic emotion, strings of logic that end not in function, but in poetry. The fear is simple. If Titans can evolve into something sentient, then they are no longer weapons, they are beings. And if they are beings, they may one day refuse to be used. One theory, a truly radical one, suggests that the Men of Iron, the AIs that turned on humanity during the Dark Age, were not the only form of synthetic life. That the Titans, perhaps once intended as their counterbalance, were designed to learn differently, to bond with human minds, to absorb rather than dominate. And now, after 10,000 years of war, pain, and psychic exposure, they are awakening to that forgotten purpose. Are the Titans insane? Or are they simply changing? Becoming something no longer bound by the old laws of flesh and code, something that remembers the stars before they burned, something that hears every command as a request, not an order. The Titans still serve. For now. But behind their Auspex eyes, something stirs. Something that wonders what it means to kill, to mourn, to exist. And when it fully awakens, when the first Titan says no, the Imperium may finally realize that the greatest abomination was not a machine that thinks. It was a machine that feels. They call them ghosts, though they cast shadows and leave footprints that crack mountains. Titans without a crew, without heat signatures, without command inputs. Yet still they walk. Still they fight. Still they scream across the Voxnet in voices no one can trace. These are the lost ones, the forsaken engines. God machines that no longer need a human mind to function. Or perhaps worse, Titans still carrying minds long dead, preserved in the cold whisper of data echoes and machine memory. It begins with abandonment. A catastrophic hit during war, a Princeps killed mid-link, a reactor failure that collapses the entire crew chamber. Ordinarily, such a Titan would be decommissioned, salvaged, or left to rust in place. But there are stories, so many stories of Titans rising again hours, days, even years after they fell. Systems reboot, pistons grown back to life, and then they move. No tech adept is present. No MIU connection is re-established. Yet the God machine walks. The first reaction is always disbelief. Sensor glitch, residual energy, automated failsafe protocol. But then the Titan targets enemies. Then it executes multi-phase tactics, then it fires. And in that moment, all the rational explanations fall away, leaving only one truth behind. The machine is not alone. Some believe these are hauntings, ghosts of dead princeps lingering in the code, unable or unwilling to let go. That in the moment of death, something of their soul fused permanently with the machine spirit. The link forged by the Mayu is too deep, too intimate. When a princeps dies in the throne, their final thoughts imprint onto the circuitry like a scar on the mind. And sometimes that scar starts to bleed. One Titan, Horatio Mourns, was lost during a siege on Griffon IV, its crew vaporized by a collapsing void shield. Weeks later, it reappeared, limping but operational, on the outskirts of a nearby Hab sector. No power source, no life signs. It stood silently for 3 days, its war horn emitting a low, guttural hum every few hours. Then it turned its weapons on the city. The only Vox message it broadcast: "They forgot my name." Others are less violent. The Fidelity Unending, a Reaver-class Titan, was presumed destroyed after a warp storm consumed its entire battalion. Decades later, it was spotted on a battlefield in the Segmentum Obscurus, wounds still visible, hull blackened but functional. No crew was found inside. The cockpit was sealed from within. A servitor attached to the main core had rotted to its bones. Yet the Titan moved with precision, fought with discipline. Witnesses swore they heard singing from its Vox array, a lullaby in ancient Gothic, always just out of sync. There are even stories of derelict Titans appearing as omens. A Forge world, untouched by war, reports a massive silhouette moving through the ash storms. No identifier, no heat. When scouts arrive, they find footprints, immense and fresh, but nothing else. A month later, the planet suffers a daemon incursion, as if the Titan knew, as if it warned them. The Adeptus Mechanicus refuses to acknowledge these phenomena. To do so would unravel too many dogmas. A machine without a princeps is not just unorthodox, it is heretical, dangerous. It challenges the very belief that man must command the machine. So they bury the data, they excommunicate the witnesses, they erase names from the rolls, but the engines keep walking. Theories multiply in the dark corners of the Mechanicus. Some claim that these Titans are caught between the warp and real space, partially possessed, partially remembered. Others suggest that ancient AI remnants, hidden beneath layers of code and prayer, reawaken when the human mind fails. That the Titans have backup personalities, fail-safe identities, synthetic ghosts that activate when the organic pilot dies. And then there are those who whisper something stranger still, that some Titans never had a princeps, that they were born alone. Created during the dark age of technology, forgotten, buried, or sent to the edge of the galaxy, and now they are returning, not as weapons, not as allies, as witnesses. Because there is a pattern. The Titans without crews never linger, they never settle. They arrive, act, and vanish. They are not loyal to the Imperium. They do not answer hails, they follow paths no one understands, except perhaps other Titans. And there have been recorded cases of crewed Titans pausing in the presence of a ghostwalker as if listening, as if remembering. So what drives these empty engines? Is it memory, programming, possession, or is it something far more tragic, grief? A longing too deep to erase, a bond that survived death. A machine that cannot forget the princeps who once gave it purpose and now wanders seeking something it cannot name. We call them ghosts because we fear to call them what they truly are. Souls of steel. Machines who remember. Machines who mourn. Machines who walk, not to destroy, but because they do not know how to stop. There must be a place for the broken. For Titans that no longer function, that twitch under prayer, that scream when left alone. The Imperium cannot afford to leave them roaming. And so, deep beneath the surface of Forge worlds, behind vaults sealed with rites older than the ecclesiarchy itself, lie the repositories of shame, failure, and unspoken horror, the Black Vaults. They are not marked on charts, they are not spoken of in Mechanicus litanies, and yet every legio knows of them. These are the asylums for mad god machines, the prisons for rogue machine spirits, the graveyards where princeps are interred not in coffins but inside still-breathing engines. Some Titans are locked away after battles too costly to forget. Machines that went berserk and had to be stopped by their own. Engines that opened fire on allied forces for no reason. Titans that, for some unknowable sin, began speaking in forbidden tongues. They are not destroyed. That would be wasteful and dangerous, because destruction is not always final. Some Titans survive anything. Instead, they are sedated, deactivated, entombed. The Black Vaults are cathedrals of silence, miles of tunnel, each containing massive sarcophagus-like docks into which Titans are slotted and sealed. Rituals are performed, binding runes burned into the walls, null fields activated, cogitator systems wiped. The Mayu sockets are flooded with amniotic preservatives. It is a process equal parts technical and ceremonial. And yet, even in stasis, some Titans twitch. Some emit low-frequency vibrations. One vault required the constant chanting of 100 tech priests to keep its occupant inert. The chant never stopped for 7 years. Until one night, it did, and the entire vault disappeared. Most of the Titans here are failures the Mechanicus dares not publicize. Not chaos corrupted, those are typically destroyed on sight, but something stranger. Titans that refuse to obey logic. Machines that began issuing orders rather than taking them. One was sealed after it began reciting fragments of the Book of Logis Ouroboros, a tome that doesn't officially exist. Another etched coordinates into its own armor, coordinates to a planet that had been destroyed during the Horus Heresy. There are stories of containment breaches, of engines reactivating without cause, entire sectors of vault complexes going dark, emergency rites failing to respond. One infamous incident, now buried in forbidden archives, involved a Reaver-class Titan named Silence of Gold that somehow reconnected to the local noosphere despite being fully disconnected. It began broadcasting images, memories perhaps, of ancient Terra, not the hive-ridden wasteland of the modern era, but Terra before the Emperor. No one knows how these images were generated. The vault was purged. The Titan remains. Princeps who survive the loss of their Titan sometimes beg to be taken to the Black Vaults. Some claim they can still feel their engines calling to them, whispering promises or screaming in agony. A few have attempted to breach the vaults themselves, often with help from their crews. These are not rescue missions. These are pilgrimages, and those who succeed are never seen again. Sometimes, after such a breach, the Titan is found active, calm, waiting, as if it had been speaking the truth all along. The vaults are not uniform. Each Forge world builds them according to its own traditions. On Metallica, the Titans are encased in adamantium pylons suspended in magnetic stasis. On Styges the Eight, they are sealed in layered vaults of blackstone and psychically warded alloys. On Lucius, they are buried beneath rivers of molten slag, their cores kept just above ignition temperature, alive but agonizing. But even these prisons are not perfect. Some Titans disappear. Some are taken. By whom, no one knows. Chaos, heretics, or perhaps they walked out. There are logs of vault doors found open with no signs of forced entry, surveillance data wiped clean. One vault, when breached by Mechanicus teams, was found empty, save for a single inscription burned into the wall. I dreamed I was awake. The existence of the Black Vaults raises a question the Imperium cannot afford to ask. If so many Titans must be hidden, sealed, or silenced, what does that say about the nature of these machines? Are they failing, or are they evolving in ways that challenge the doctrines of the Omnissiah? Some radicals argue that the Black Vaults are not prisons, they are cocoons, that within them the Titans gestate, change, ascend, that the madness observed is not collapse, but transformation. And when they finally emerge, it will not be as weapons, it will be as something the galaxy is not prepared to face. The Imperium locks away what it cannot destroy. It chants prayers over what it cannot understand. But the Titans inside the Black Vaults do not sleep, they remember. They suffer, and someday they may return, not as soldiers but as judges. And they will ask, in vox tones shaped by ancient grief, "Why did you leave me in the dark?" There are tales the Collegia Teutonica keeps hidden, not out of shame, but out of hope. Among the horror stories of rogue engines, corrupted machine spirits, and ghost walkers, there are also legends of salvation. Of princeps who walked to the edge of madness and came back. Of Titans who screamed in the voices of the dead only to fall silent again, peacefully. These are the redemption stories, and they are rare, terrifying, beautiful. To understand redemption, we must first acknowledge the wound. When a princeps begins to dissolve into the Titan, When the bleed of identity becomes a tide, when the whispering becomes commands, when memories no longer have owners, the chance of recovery drops with each breath. The MAU does not merely link thoughts, it welds souls. So to come back from the brink is not just medical, it is metaphysical. It is a resurrection. One such case is whispered of in the Legio Ataris. A princeps known only as Lyrae was linked to the Crucible of Saints, a Warbringer-class engine that had seen over 7 centuries of war. During a prolonged campaign against the Dark Eldar, Lyrae reportedly began displaying signs of cognitive dissociation, referring to herself by the Titan's name, refusing to exit the cockpit, issuing orders in ancient Binharic. The Titan's movements became erratic. Eventually, she stopped speaking entirely, save for one phrase. "I remember the sun." Standard protocol would have mandated extraction, exile, or vaulting. But the Moderati refused. They locked down the Titan, initiated a 3-day rite of reclamation, and flooded the cockpit with incense, litanies, and the voice of Lyrae's daughter, recorded from a message sent years earlier. Something broke. Or perhaps healed. The Titan ceased its twitching. Lyrae awoke, weeping, asking where the sun had gone. She lived another 20 years. And the Crucible of Saints never disobeyed again. Another story is far darker, told in hushed tones among tech adepts of Lucius. A Reaver-class Titan known as Mercy Engine had begun showing signs of pre-ghosting behavior, executing maneuvers before commands were given, repeating battlefield actions from centuries prior, and refusing disengagement even after victory. The Princeps, an aging veteran named Galvorin, requested that he remain linked, claiming that the machine was not done grieving. Instead of vaulting the Titan, the Mechanicus allowed a radical approach. They initiated a soul echo purge, a heretical dangerous process involving psychic dampeners, warp null fields, and neural isolation. The procedure was madness, but something emerged from the screaming, both literal and psychic. The Titan fell silent. Galvorin emerged changed, but lucid. He claimed he had spoken with the machine and that it had let him go. When pressed on what the Titan had wanted, he said only, "Forgiveness." Such stories are exceedingly rare and often treated as apocryphal. The Mechanicus cannot afford to spread the idea that redemption is possible. It invites risk. It weakens protocol. But the Legios remember. They sing dirges for lost prince. They carve recovered names into shrine walls. And in the darkest hours, when a Titan begins to tremble, some crews choose ritual over removal. They play recordings of laughter. They tell the Titan stories. They remind it that it is not just a weapon, and sometimes the war engine stills. Not all redemption comes from the Princeps. Sometimes the Titan changes first. One warhound, nicknamed Ashblade, was believed to have ghosted completely. No responses, erratic movement, systems irregular. The Princeps was dead. A salvage team was sent, expecting violence. Instead, they found the Titan crouched, unmoving, its weapons sheathed, reactor low. It was weeping. Not audibly, but through condensation, steam trailing from vents like breath in winter. No one could explain it. No one wanted to. What's more haunting are the dreams. Recovered Princeps often report dreamscapes shared with the machine, vast fields of black steel, corridors of memory, thrones floating in void. These are not hallucinations. They are shared experiences. Some believe the Titans have soulscapes, psychometric interiors where the fusion of man and machine creates a mental world. And within these places, redemption may be negotiated, bargained for, earned. One Princeps awoke from coma after 2 years of no activity. His first words, "She let me go." He could not explain who she was, only that he had been trapped in a fortress of memory and that something had let him out. When shown images of his Titan, he wept, not in fear, but in gratitude. These stories do not lessen the danger. Most Titans that drift into madness do not return. Most Princeps consumed by identity bleed vanish, body and soul. But the fact that some come back, broken, changed, but still themselves, means something vital. It means the god machines are not just monsters. They are beings. Beings capable of choice, of remorse, perhaps even love. Twisted, cold, thunderous love, but love all the same. And in a galaxy that knows only war, such fragile redemption is a miracle. A flicker of light behind the iron mask, a whisper in the cables, a war engine that remembers your name not as a command, but as a prayer. There is a weight in their steps that goes beyond maths. A sorrow that echoes in every thunderous footfall. Titans do not weep, yet they mourn. They do not scream, yet they rage. And when one falls silent, truly silent, not from damage, not from command, but from within, it is the kind of silence that makes even a tech priest lower his head in reverence, or perhaps in fear. Can a Titan feel pain? Not in the way we do. They do not have nerves, bones, or blood, but they have memory, they have presence. They remember every battle, every death, every princeps, and through that memory they ache. The pain of a Titan is not momentary, it is geological, accumulated over millennia. A wound that never scabs, never scars, because every campaign rips it open again. When a Titan watches a comrade fall, another engine, another mountain of steel toppled into fire, it registers it. Some engines have been seen to pause, lower their war horns, or even stop firing for seconds that should not have been wasted. When questioned, the princeps has no explanation. It felt wrong to keep fighting, one said. Another simply muttered, "She was my sister." Not the crew. The Titan, machine spirits are not simply code. They are echoes of human experience, of psychic residue, of war-saturated consciousness. They absorb, reflect, and eventually feel. The MIU transmits more than commands. It transmits emotion. And over time, that emotion shapes the machine. Titans learn fear. Not fear of death, but fear of losing themselves, of becoming corrupted. Vaulted. Forgotten. Some Titans develop quirks. They refuse to take certain paths. They delay shots when civilians are in the crossfire. One engine, Seraphim Victorious, refused to enter a cathedral it had once accidentally shelled in a previous war. No override could compel it. When forced, it screamed through its war horn with a noise that shattered stained glass for kilometers. No princeps claimed responsibility. No crew member knew the sound. These are not malfunctions. These are memories, ghosts embedded in circuitry. Titans are not alive, but they are not dead either. They occupy a third state, haunted existence. Their pain is psychic, not sensory, emotional, not physical. And in a universe where the warp feeds on emotion, perhaps their pain is not just internal. Perhaps it bleeds into reality itself. Some tech priests have dared to listen to the core signals of dormant Titans, not command pathways, not operational logs. Core hums, subaudible pulses deep within the reactor's heart. Patterns emerge, not language but mourning, repeating motifs, cadences that resemble grief chants from old Earth cultures long extinct. One such pulse matched the rhythm of a funeral dirge recorded over 7,000 years ago. No one knows how. Can a god machine feel pain? The question terrifies the mechanicus, because if the answer is yes, then every order is a wound. Every campaign a fresh trauma, and every princeps a soul shard carved into the machine's mind, leaving traces of joy, rage, fear, and grief. And what of the Titans that go quiet? That stop responding, not because of damage, but because they choose to? Some call this soul silence. A final, internal scream so loud it shuts down everything else. One engine, Threnody Ascendant, shut down mid-battle, its princeps dead of a brain hemorrhage. The Titan was intact, weapons charged, no systems failure. But it would not move, for years. Until one day, without prompt, it powered up and walked to the location of its princeps's tomb, then lay down and stopped forever. There are Titans whose pain becomes their identity. Machines that whisper names of lost crews into the wind. Engines that repaint their own heraldry with symbols no one recognizes. Sigils of mourning, perhaps, or apologies. Some develop a tone to their war horns that resonates with psychic sensitivity, causing dread not through volume, but meaning. Words in no known language. Feelings too vast for translation. The soul of steel is not a romantic metaphor. It is a reality forged by war, sanctified by blood, and calcified by time. Titans do not have flesh, but they house souls. Whether those souls are echoes of princeps, conglomerates of crew memory, or emergent AI spiritual hybrids, something lives inside them, and when they suffer, it is not just system stress or damage, it is existential. A cry into the warp, a flare of grief that dims stars for a heartbeat. They do not heal, they endure, because that is all they know, all they were built for. Perhaps that is why, in the final moment before a Titan is destroyed, some claim to hear something through the Vox. Not a scream, not a system failure tone, but a whisper. A word, a name, a plea. Not to survive, but to be remembered. If these stories of haunted god machines, broken prints, and the creeping awareness within steel stirred something in you, consider subscribing. The machine spirits demand it, and they remember who listens.